Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Ms. Aruna Roy, member of National Advisory Council, also author of, one of the key authors of Right to Information Act. She was involved in the whole drafting process and the conceptualization, and has also been involved with some of the key legislations such as NREGA, now known as Manrega. Welcome to our show, Ms. Aruna Roy. I will begin by asking you this broad question which relates to today's debate as to how can India reinvent its social welfare delivery system. We are in the middle of a big cash transfer program debate, not fully fleshed out. We are in the middle of another debate on how NREGA could be reinvented in a way that really sort of reaches out to the people in the manner originally envisaged. So how do you look at this process and this debate?
Let me just say that India is now caught between the Indian government and the Indian policymakers are caught in their own dilemmas today. They've created these dilemmas, and some of them are false dilemmas, some of them are real genuine dilemmas. Okay. In the delivery of real services to the people, all the rights-based acts that have come into being now, or are proposed to be given to us, like the Right to Food Act, which is still hanging fire, you agree that the basis is a right under the Constitution for every Indian citizen to have basic needs. Now, in that process, delivery becomes very important to deliver that right. But there is a peculiar mechanism within the bureaucracy, as well as the political elite, that when systems don't deliver, they want to introduce another system, failing to understand that no matter what the system you propose, and even if it's technology that you propose, it will be handled by human beings.
So not enough research on why things failed.
We tend to shift quickly from one thing to another without addressing the genuine real issues. The real issue is governance. And in governance, in a country like ours, the most important thing is both transparency and decentralization. You cannot have any system that sitting at one point monitors the entire country or even monitors a state. So you have to decentralize the process, and that's what the Right to Information Act has actually offered to you, because you, in your proactive disclosure under Section 4, are bound to disclose whatever you're doing to at every level of the community interface that you have.
And RTI has had its effect, which everybody now is a consensus.
Yes, it has had its effect, and people monitor. People are interested individually for the delivery of their own individualized service, and collectively for systemic failures that they see. And what better way can you have for monitoring a system and governance? So even NREGA, by incorporating the basic tenets of right to information, has made it possible for people. So if you take Rajiv Gandhi's statement that 15 paisa went before, today 55 paisa actually reaches. At least people know what the budget of an NREGA program is.
Even if 55 paisa reaches in NREGA, is that a...
I am just hazarding broadly, but because if you go and ask, there are complaints, because always there are complaints, but many people, look at the quantum of people who have got work. They haven't got 100 days work, but they've got work. Look at distress migration, which has stopped. Look at minimum wages, which has gone up.
So these are some of
these indicators,
if you take the outcomes,
Yes.
So would you also agree that partly NREGA's delivery has improved, as opposed to what you mentioned about Rajiv Gandhi used to say was delivered at that time, is also because of direct cash transfer to bank accounts, as was experimented with in Andhra Pradesh and some other states? Did that work? I mean,
no,
did that contribute to it?
I tell you, see, it's very simple. They are very complex issues. Of course, you want people to have bank accounts, you want to have money there. But there are 2-3 things which are triggers in the NREGA. One is the first demand for work, which has not got off the ground yet, because the bureaucracy is digging its heels in, doesn't give you a dated receipt, without which you can't get your guarantee, you can't apply to, you can't go to a court to negotiate for your unemployment allowance. That's one major hurdle. The second major hurdle is delayed payments. Banks do not deliver on time. They say the MIS is not there. You go to the MIS, people in the government say we put the money into the bank or the post office, now our role is over. And the fact that we had to get our payment within 15 days at the latest is nowhere a reality, very few places. So Tamil Nadu resisted. Tamil Nadu paid in cash, and after they shifted to bank accounts, there's been a substantial fall in the number of people who go to work. Poor people have to get their money to eat practically week to week at least, if not day to day. So in a sense,
what is the problem? They couldn't withdraw the money immediately from the bank?
No, it is not put into the bank account because of the delay. Because you have to have things entered into the MIS. The MIS is go to the bank. Then the bank treats you like a customer. It says that I have so many customers, so therefore they stand in queue or in line. So there are these debates, and Tamil Nadu is now shifting to banks very reluctantly, but it was the only state till it shifted that was paying in time, and in all the other places there are delays. It means that maybe it will take time to iron it out, but in the interim you have a fall in demand. Then there is an argument from the government that you see people don't want NREG anymore, so you shrink it.
Because the wages are self-selection, so wages are higher than what the NREG offers.
No, the self-selection first is that you must get a dated receipt to guarantee that you will get the work. So this whole thing is oversimplified and presented in a manner in which then you say, oh, I see, this is the problem, you do cash transfers, because cash transfers, but
so you're saying that
it speaks of
cash transfer cannot be a panacea. You have to understand the other procedural issues.
Cash transfer cannot be a panacea for employment programs in any case. But even, I'm just saying that the logic that is presented to us in oversimplified terms, see, really, there's one thing in doing my interview with you, but there's another thing by going and sitting and looking at all the documents, listening to people, listening to predicaments, listening to the bureaucracy, listening to bank people, and then evolving a certain kind of a solution, which is never done with the people. It's always done in a very centralized manner.
It's not been enough of a consultative process so far.
None is a consultative process. Our demand that there should be a pre-legislative consultative process, despite the DOPT promoting it in one of its subgroups that it set up to look at issues, is being gunned down for fear that they will not be looked. If they are looked at, then government can't push things or ride roughshod over people on issues that are impractical. Where they are practical, yes, but where they are impractical, voices have to be heard.
But Arunaji, what would you say about some of the pilots around this cash transfer which were conducted in Alwar and some other places for delivering kerosene subsidy?
Let me tell you about Kot Qasim. I've just looked at, which is Alwar. I've just looked at the papers. See, what has happened is that the subsidy has fallen, and therefore you say demand has fallen. But if I were a poor villager and I had to produce 150 rupees to go and buy the kerosene and then go to the bank to get my subsidy, I'd probably just drop it and go and look for fuel wood somewhere, and because I wouldn't be able to lay my hands on 150 rupees, and then the location of the shop would be far away. Commercial shops don't cater to the needs of the poor or poor people. A ration shop still does. So the distance would be a problem, and then many of them don't have bank accounts. So the subsidy transfer itself has not happened. And in this case study that I read by two independent researchers, many of them who have bank accounts have not had the money. So when your system is so shaky and itself is so, I would say, in many cases really rotten, then you can't superimpose a mechanism on it which can't take the burden of that mechanism.
I get your point. We'll take a small break here. Please don't go away and stay with us. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We were having a conversation with Mrs. Aruna Roy, author of RTI and member of National Advisory Council. You were right in saying that if something doesn't work, then you cannot suddenly shift to say something like cash transfer and overnight make it work, because when something doesn't work, there are several reasons why. So you have to go into those reasons why things don't work. Now, how do you, if you were a policy maker, Arunaji, how would you deal with this established fact that at least 20-25% of kerosene, 30% is taken away by the kerosene mafia and mixed with diesel? Now, how would you deal with this?
See, I would really go and look at the states which have done very well. Tamil Nadu has done very well with the PDS, and Chhattisgarh, surprisingly, has done very well. And in my interaction with government officials there, they all maintained that by shifting the process away from the PDS, it's not going to be a phenomenal success. This is government speaking, not me, bureaucrats,
Okay. Yeah.
and who are committed bureaucrats. And they really said that actually what we should do is 3 or 4 things. One is that must be complete transparency. Every village must know how much kerosene is coming. They must know which are the depots, which are the dealers, and how much the dealers are giving a cut. And in fact, in Chhattisgarh, they were also giving people the numbers of the trucks which were taking these, so that people could track those trucks.
This RTI can play a role here, right?
RTI plus good sound administration, and that can really deliver. And instead of looking at those multiply effects of those systems, they've gone into cash transfer. Now cash transfer is burdening an already ineffective and overburdened system, which is the banks and the post offices or wherever you're banking. And even so when you go to those banks, we haven't even sat with those banks to see why NREGA payments are not occurring in time, or why there are various other schemes of the banks which don't seem to work.
So you're saying that cash transfer can supplement good governance, not the other way around. Cash transfer alone cannot bring good governance.
Cash transfer certainly cannot bring good governance, but cash transfer in terms of payments like salaries, pensions, scholarships, etc., where there can be pilferage, they can of course do a good job. But when you have it in lieu of goods and services, there are very serious problems. Because, and even in Brazil, let me tell you that there are government facilities. There is a government welfare centers for health, for schooling, and now they're actually looking at India and looking at a distribution system for PDS for their own food. And to use
so all
those
these schemes,
systems,
they supplement Bolsa Familia.
So Bolsa Familia gives you money to facilitate you to use these systems. It's not supplementing those systems.
That's why it's called conditional cash transfer.
It's called conditional cash transfer. In India, we catch a phrase and we are so far away from Brazil. The other thing is, I've just been to Brazil, by the way, for International Anti-Corruption Convention.
Did you happen to meet the father of this Bolsa Familia?
No, I didn't have time. I was meeting the anti-corruption activists. So, but in that there was a lot of discussion of this. It's 85% of Brazil's population is in cities. It's not only the reverse, it's much more than the reverse in terms of population distribution. So you have concentrated population, you have access to all resources like banks and so on.
So you think this would work better in urban areas?
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm saying that by transferring anything from one nation to the next, you have to look at the predicament and the systems that prevail in that particular nation. Even from in India, for what you say of the Northeast cannot be applicable in South India and cannot be applicable in Western India. We are so diverse. So to bring an experiment like this and without discussing it largely even within the government.
Has it been discussed at the NAC?
No, it hasn't been discussed. That's another thing.
That's a bit of surprise to me.
The NAC is only going by what the President said in her initial, the erstwhile President said in her initial address to the joint Parliament. And some of us demanded that there should be something like the National Common Minimum Program, which was the first NAC's basic document. But there is nothing. So it is, in a sense, little arbitrary as what could be discussed in the NAC and what couldn't.
But madam, you could, since you are a member, can't you propose a discussion within the NAC?
Some issues have been proposed, but the NAC has not accepted those proposals. So by and large, it is only within a certain narrow framework of what was stated in Parliament that we are functioning. And the NAC is one institution, but I really do think that the larger area of governance issues, west with state governments, west with national government, in ministries, departments, to explain what they're doing. If the MORD can put its policies, not necessarily policies, it's draft legislations out on the internet for all of us to see before it finalizes anything, why can't the entire government do it? And in terms of policy which affect people at large, it's not merely, you can't say, oh, it's a political issue, so it cannot be discussed in this consultative committee or that consultative committee. Political policy issues and policies become government programs, and then they affect all of us. So all these, and in fact the Right to Information Act says under section 4 that any policy that has the propensity to impact all of us, I'm saying it in my own words, will have to be seen by people, and there should be a consultative process. So we just demand that there must be a consultative process. I think the mistake that governments are doing now is that India is getting more and more aware of not only of its rights, but of governance issues. RTI has done this major shift. Before RTI we looked for individual issues, but after RTI we are interested in governance issues. And if you don't take people into consultation, there is going to be a lot of trouble, politically and otherwise.
When you talk about consultation, I was told that Nitish Kumar, during the last Bihar election, he actually went to various public meetings, and he asked the people whether they would want kerosene and other goods in kind, or would they want cash. And I saw this report in some of the local newspapers, and I also, one of Nitish Kumar's advisors told me that he got the feedback that a lot of them said they wanted cash. And then he started experimenting with some schemes like college girls, school girls, giving them cycles, directly giving them money. He argued that if he got the administration to buy cycles and then deliver, there will be a huge leakage. And he also argued that in a caste-ridden society, this cash transfer would work better in a way that it would bypass the upper castes which dominates administration and actually.
No, I don't know.
No, these are some of the arguments that he made.
Let me tell you that I'm a poor family. You give me 3 kilos of grain. 3 kilos of grain, you fix an arbitrary price now. Within 3 months, the prices go up in the market. If you just give me cash transfer, I'm losing grain. And actually, even within the MJNREGA, there are people now asking for kind.
For kind.
Yes, and the poorest in India ask for kind always. They don't want cash. Cash goes into the hands of the man. Cash goes into liquor. Cash goes into many things. But if you give me grain, I control it as a woman. So women have always wanted.
So this is a feedback from the ground.
Yes,
the
they want. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday in Lucknow. We had a women in NREGA meeting where many of them said that the general feeling amongst women is that kind is better than cash because we control it.
Okay. We'll take a small break here. This is getting very interesting. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Ms. Aruna Roy, member of National Advisory Council. Madam, do you think a hybrid system could work? I completely agree with you that the poor in India, they like to receive things in kind, and they may not be able to handle cash. That's one narrative. But maybe the urban India or the semi-urban part of India can handle this system of cash transfer. Now there was a study done recently by Rinana Jhabwala for Delhi, where she concluded that there could be a hybrid system. People who want cash could be given cash, and people who want kind. Now, do you think a dual system could operate?
Well, I don't know how administratively feasible it would be, because there is another survey which was done in Delhi which said that people did not want the PDS to be dismantled at all.
Yeah, sure.
Because whatever it is, see, the poor want government to operate and give all their basic services, because private sector has never been accountable to the poor. So we want our PDS, we want our maternity and health services to be handled by the state. We also want schools handled by the state. So that's why I said that the Bolsa Familia was something else. So it has not deconstructed its welfare services. Its welfare services exist. Now we want the state to manage that.
It reinforces those welfare services, right? The Bolsa Familia.
The basic thing in India is that we want the welfare services to exist. We are projecting India into 2050. 2050, India might want a completely different scenario of things. Today, that 8.5% is the 8.5%. Social development indicators show us below 4th or 5th from the bottom. We are below Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sub-Saharan Africa. And in a paper by Jean Reyes and Amartya Sen, these figures have been quoted. It's not me. So therefore, how can you then say that the government or the state can wash its hands of its basic responsibility to make sure that people become reasonably healthy, have reasonable access to all the goods and services before they start talking about handing it over to other agents and players?
In this context, how would you then assess the Andhra Pradesh Health Arogya, that program, where I think YSR Reddy actually reached health services through the private sector to nearly 80% of the population for some time. They could go to a private clinic and they would be delivered those services with the help of a card or whatever was given to them. Now, is that a model now which is, since it was experimented with and had some success, how would you look at that model?
See, actually I have not seen or studied this, so I can't say with any guarantee.
Apparently it had created a huge positive kind of...
No, but it also depends on how good your government health services are. If your government health services are good, then even today, even though I don't earn a lot of money, but I belong to the privileged class by association, I would really prefer to go to a government hospital than a private hospital. Because in terms, even though there are physical discomfort, the quality of the medical service sometimes is much better. So I would really I wouldn't be able to answer that question with any authenticity of opinion because I have not studied that. But I know from Rajasthan that if we have a good running government PHC, we won't go to a private hospital because we believe that the government hospital is there to deliver. But if the government hospital says as soon as we enter that there are no medicines, after having sold it to, it's all corruption. So if you put up a little board outside saying that this PHC delivers this following services, should deliver all these medicines, I will fight it. Just as in Rajasthan now, there is a state government order that only medicines which are, what do you call them, the non, not getting the word. The basic medicine should be sold at cost price, and prices of medicines have come down dramatically. So you don't really have to buy those standard, packaged medicines, which are far more expensive. So in that case, the use of medicines is also increased. People have access to medicines. So in my opinion, we throw away whole range of choices and go to a different range of choices without examining what of that range will really work.
So in this context, ma'am, what would work for cash transfer? I mean, you said that some services would work, for instance, pension or whatever, scholarships or those
I think where you're directly transferring some cash to an individual should be transferred, whether it's cash in terms of salaries, cash in terms of pensions, cash in terms of scholarships. It's a cash transaction between you and the beneficiary. Transfer it through bank.
What about fertilizer subsidies? Like farmers are today being duped by companies who are gold plating.
All subsidies, all goods, all services should be negotiated with people to find out where it can work and where it cannot work. It must be completely broken up into its constituent parts and looked at.
That's an interesting
These blankets things, it has to be unpackaged.
Then you have to deconstruct and see where it will work.
You have to. None of us know it. I don't know if you know. You may know a bit more than I do.
No,
but certainly the people of India don't know. And what do you mean by cash transfer? What do you mean by even the UID, which we have not touched upon?
But do you think NSE can undertake this exercise? Just looking at various parts of all these subsidies and where it will work, where it will not work, as you've suggested.
I don't know. We'll have to test the grounds and see whether they will or won't take up.
So, but coming back to the other big initiative that you're looking at, the Food Security Act. Food, you are very clear that food cannot be cash transfer cannot be brought into the food security framework, right?
Yes,
food has to be delivered
clear.
in kind.
Yes.
But do you think after delivering in kind, cash could be used to supplement other nutritions like soya or some, there's one criticism that the Food Security Act just talks about delivering of physical food, but really not looking at nutrition.
See, I'll tell you.
Do you think nutrition can be supplemented with cash?
Let me just begin by saying that though it's called food security by the government, it's not food security they're talking about.
Okay.
They're talking about basic grain entitlement.
Yeah,
that's all they're talking about.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
So where is nutrition?
Within the scope of the act, there is no concept of nutrition.
Yeah.
And when we bring up the issue of nutrition, we are gunned down, which is what the campaign has been doing, and they've been told it's not that. But they still claim it's food security. It's a misnomer. First of all, the bill should be called Food Entitlement Act. And actually, I would even reduce it to basic grain entitlement. That's what they're giving us.
There are other foods are not
grain,
included.
and that's it. Basically, they're only
Milk
looking
is not
at
there, or pulses.
No, they're looking at no pulses. They're not looking at edible oils. No, but the point therefore is that I would say yes, they should supplement it, but whether that should be supplemented by cash or whether they should be supplemented by kind is again another argument. You don't realize the dependence of
because the government doesn't procure many of the things. So
but you
how
see
do they deliver it physically?
Have you been to a local small kasbah town with kirana shops? Do you know how much they mark up on every item? And do you know how they make people indebted for life? How they really make you bonded in a sense, and that you sell your property to finally pay off those shops. So if that shop is going to manage my rations, they will screw the daylights out of every one of us, because we will be then buying things we don't want, maybe, and buying bad quality stuff. The government may be supplying them good food, good quality grain. They may be acquiring good quality grain, but what is the most rotten will that shop will be sold to me. So I will be caught every way which way.
Okay.
So I really do think that when we look at welfare, welfare is really the duty of the state. The state must acknowledge that if it doesn't do this, the future of India is going to be very bleak. No matter how worried we may be between the 8.5 and the 5.5 or a 5.25 that's haunting our dreams now, because what faces us on the other side because of dire poverty
Basically,
is violence.
I think your broader point is well taken, that it's good governance which can make cash transfer work, not the other way around. Cash transfer cannot create good governance. That's the point you make.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Arunaji. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back again with another episode soon. Thanks for watching.